Hey guys, it's ETA Prime back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at the all-new AtGames Legends Ultimate arcade machine. Now I know there's a lot of people out there that don't quite like AtGames products, and I'm personally one of them. But this has been a major request on the channel for the last month or so I figured I'd go ahead and pick one up. Full disclosure here, I use my own funds to pick this up from my local Sam's Club. Now these don't come in cheap. Base price on these is $499 from Sam's Club or $599 from Walmart, and those are the only two places I've seen them being sold. If you watch my channel, you know I own a lot of these arcade 1-up machines and these smaller machines from different companies. I also have a full-size Extensions arcade, and that's personally my favorite one, but by the time you're done, you got a lot of money into it. The Legends Ultimate does come preloaded with 350 games. I'm not going to go over every single one in this video, but I will leave a link to their website. They have a full games list over there. But I think one of the main issues here is they've added some console games to this arcade machine from Atari and Genesis. Now, the arcade selection isn't phenomenal, but lucky for us, we can easily add our own main games. They've also added another feature called Bring Your Own Game, and I don't see this lasting long at all because they want to charge you for time. Now what this is going to allow you to do is use their servers with the games you already own and stream them to the cabinet. It's $1 an hour, and I understand that it costs a lot to run these servers, but luckily with the latest firmware update, they have added free in-home streaming from your own PC. So if you own a game you want to play, let's say Street Fighter V, and you have a PC that's capable of running it, you can stream it to the cabinet in your home over network for free. And this is something I will be testing out in a later video. And since they're touting this as the world's first connected arcade, they also have ArcadeNet, which is something I'm personally interested in. This is a monthly service which allows you to access different arcade games on your cabinet. I personally don't mind paying for something like this as long as they have a good selection of games. But keep in mind, you do not need to use either of those services, and we can easily add our own main games to this cabinet. Assembly on the unit is super easy. They do have a full tutorial over on their website. It took me less than 10 minutes and I'm up and running. And when it's all said and done, you'll have something that looks like this. I think it's a nice looking cabinet. It's actually pretty well built for what you're getting here from AtGames. Really nice LED backlit marquee. The side art does have a lot of Disney in it, but I can get by with this. The screen looks pretty good minus the plastic that's on the front, and that's the first thing I want to upgrade. I do want to change this out for glass. It's a 1080p 24.5 inch display, and the whole unit itself stands 66.5 inches tall. On the far left, I have a full-size Game Room Solutions Extensions arcade cabinet, and on the right here, we have the Arcade 1-Up. This is the Street Fighter edition. If you were really worried about the size of the Arcade 1-Ups, the Legends Ultimate might be a great choice for you. One thing that really impressed me about this cabinet is the control panel. We can input HDMI through here, and there's 2 USB ports for extra controllers or adding games. Obviously, this is a 2-player unit, and the sticks actually feel pretty decent. They're not Sanwa or anything like that. They're probably using some type of zippy hardware in here, but I haven't had any issues with it. 2 spinners, a trackball, and 6 action buttons for each player. So this isn't top of the line hardware, but the good thing to note is this isn't the bottom of the barrel either. This is actually set up pretty nice. The sticks, buttons, spinners, and trackball function perfectly out of the box. And if you really wanted to get down into it, you could replace all of this with high-end hardware, but as it sits, it works perfectly. Alright, so here we are with the main menu. Over here we have all games, feature, favorite, recent, channels. If we go into channels, we can see that some games are made by Data East, Atari, and there's a few others in here. Arcade, Atari 2600, ColecoVision, Console, and Genesis. There's definitely a lot of Atari 2600 games on here, and I'll probably never play them on this arcade machine. There's also some ColecoVision and Genesis. AtGames does have a full list of the included games, so you can check that out. I'll leave a link in the description. But what I'm really worried about is arcade, because after all, this is an arcade machine. So there are some great arcade games built in here like Asteroids, Millipede, Crude Busters, and Boogie Wings, but you're not going to find anything in here like The Simpsons or Street Fighter. But like I mentioned, you can add those using a USB stick. Now I think they saved a lot of the good stuff for the ArcadeNet, which is a paid service every month. They will add new games, and as long as the selection is good and the latency isn't bad, I have no issues at all subscribing to this. Now the Bring Your Own Game section is something I'll probably never use from their own servers, but since they've added the ability to stream from your own PC, I'll definitely be testing this out. I got a lot of great fighting games that I would love to run on here over network. And finally, we have settings here. So since this is a connected arcade machine, it does have Wi-Fi and Ethernet built in. The Wi-Fi is AC, so you get that 5 gigahertz network. And they have over-the-air updates. There's also some parental controls in here. You can set up your account for ArcadeNet, and it has a track mode built in. Now, a track mode on a real arcade just displays images on screen and plays some music to get people to come over to it. So now I want to get into a little bit of gameplay just to see how everything performs here. We're going to go with something super easy because I'm really interested in checking out these spinners and the trackball, so we'll go with Breakout. Overall, these spinners feel great. The sensitivity on them is pretty high. I'm not sure if we can change that or not in the settings, but I'll look into that later on. Let's test out this trackball. This is how I'm used to playing Breakout games, with the trackball, and this is much easier. It's not as sensitive as those spinners, and in my opinion, it just works so much better. So overall, you shouldn't have any trouble with these spinners or the trackball. So here's Boogie Wings. I just wanted to test out the stick and buttons, and I gotta say, I'm really surprised at how good these do feel. The stick and the buttons are actually pretty decent for being an AtGames unit. And by the way, this does have stereo speakers built in, and you can control the volume. Overall, the sound on this thing is pretty good too. There are a few screen mode settings that you can mess around with while you're playing a game. Press Menu. We have Pixel Perfect. This is Center, which makes it a little bigger. We can go to Fit. And there's also Wide, which is something I'm not going to be using. It just fills the whole screen. And as you can see, everything's stretched out when you have it to wide. I personally prefer using Pixel Perfect, but Center also looks good. And there's also a single scanline mode. Now I know it's going to be hard to see in this video here, but it doesn't look bad at all. There are some built-in Sega Genesis games. This is Thunderbolt 2, and I just wanted to test it out with these arcade sticks. Now you can always plug in a USB controller if you want to, but this is an arcade machine. This is the first time I've tested out ArcadeNet, and you can definitely feel the latency. I figured that it would download the ROM for you, but this is streaming from their servers, so you will have that input delay, which is a big problem, especially for games like Metal Slug. Keep in mind, I am using Wi-Fi here. This is a 5 gigahertz network, but I'm only about 10 feet from my router. I will be doing some more testing with ArcadeNet in an upcoming video. I'm going to test it over a wired connection and see if that helps out. The last thing I want to show off here is playing your own games from a USB stick. Now these are all compatible with MAME 2003, and you can download this awesome Windows application from Falcon Maze 1983. He's over on GitHub. I'll leave a link in the description. This will allow you to add your own MAME games to a USB stick. It'll also do box art and bezels, and it's super easy to use. So here we have the Simpsons arcade game, and it's running great. I accidentally added the 4-player version instead of the 2-player version, so I have to go with Marge here. But overall, performance is great with these MAME 2003 games. So this is a pretty awesome little feature because it'll allow us to add thousands of different MAME games to this unit. Plus, the application works with Genesis games, so you can add your own Sega games if you like. And yes, when you add your own MAME games, the first player and the second player control panel functions properly, so you can do co-op or versus. So I was really curious on what was inside of this cabinet, so I went ahead and pulled the back panel off, and it looks like we just have that LCD screen and the HDMI controller board, something very similar to the ones we use when we mod out the Arcade 1-Up cabs. We also have an Ethernet port and our power in on the back of the panel. Dual speakers up top, LED strip for the lighted marquee, and that's about it that's inside of the cabinet itself. All the magic actually happens inside of the control panel. So it looks like we have some HAP style buttons with those detachable micro switches so you can replace them. Some decent Sanwa clone joysticks. all the I/O that goes into the cabinet for the LCD screen, the rear power, and the Ethernet, and finally, the main unit. I really like the way this is set up. Unfortunately, I can't just pull this heatsink off so we can see what CPU and RAM this thing is using. On the rear, this heatsink is actually soldered on by 4 points to the board itself. It looks like they went out of the way to kind of cover this up because it could have just been bolted there very easily. So here's the deal. I do want to find out what CPU and RAM this thing is using, but I need to make at least one more video before I get into here. I don't want to damage this board, and if I end up damaging it, we'll be able to find out what it is, but I can't make another video on it. So give me a couple days and I will desolder this heatsink and find out. So that's pretty much it for my first video on the AtGames Legends Ultimate Arcade. I do have more coming, so stay tuned to the channel. If there's anything specific you want to see running on this, or if you have any questions, just let me know in the comments below. I definitely need to spend a little more time with this unit before I do a full review, but this was my first look and so far so good. Build quality is decent, the screen looks great, the control panel is much better than I ever expected it would be. One of the only real complaints I have is the plastic used over the LCD screen. It's very, very reflective and it's noticeable, especially during daylight. But other than that, it's pretty easy to add games to, and it works very well. So that's it for this one. I really appreciate you watching. If you have any questions or you want to see anything else running, just let me know in the comments below. But like always, thanks for watching.